Прошу любить и жаловать продюсера фильма «Титаник» Джона Ландау. Продюсера, соавтора сценария, режиссера монтажа и режиссера-постановщика фильма «Титаник» Джеймса Кэмерона. Они люди, друзья и просто золотые ребята.
I've been shooting with digital cameras since Titanic. So starting in 1998, I started working with digital cameras. I literally have not touched film since then. So my personal belief is that eventually film will go away, but the ideas of lighting and composition and photography and everything else are not ever going to go away. Those are the basic principles of cinematic art. So, you know, even though we may do something like on Avatar, where we don't even use a camera at all, where we do a performance capture, virtual capture of the actors, and create the scenes using computer simulation, even then, the basic fundamentals of lighting, composition, depth, performance of the actors, all the basic principles of cinema will always apply, no matter how the technology changes.
I would also like to just point out that the last 3 movies to win the Academy Award for Best Cinematography were all shot digitally.
That's right. So Titanic has been really a big part of my life. And we planned on doing the conversion to 3D. I think in 2004 we started doing tests. 2005 we announced that we were going to do it. And it's really just taken this long to do it and complete it and to do it right. Thanks. Well, if I were shooting Titanic today, I'd be shooting it in 3D. I'd be using digital cameras. That is, because I have a company called CPG, Cameron Pace Group. We develop new 3D and digital camera technology. We supply it to other filmmakers. For example, Martin Scorsese's Hugo was shot with our cameras, and we do big sporting events and things like that. So I would absolutely be using those camera systems. And our conversion of Titanic to 3D was quite a challenge, because I believe that we had to live up to a standard of depth as if the movie had been shot in 3D. But of course, that's a standard that can never be 100% met. I think we did maybe 98%.
But you also want to point out that we actually spent more time converting it than we spent in live action filming.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, John makes a very interesting point, that we spent 60 weeks converting the film to 3D. And $18 million with 300 artists working every day. It's a very, very time-consuming and labor-intensive task to do it. And it really only makes sense to do it for films that have already proven to be very commercially successful in the marketplace. Shooting in 3D is much easier than converting from 2D to 3D. And that's why I don't understand films that are made in 2D and then converted to 3D when you have a choice. You know, if you were starting a movie today, you'd want to shoot it in 3D. You wouldn't want to shoot it in 2D and then convert it. But some people are doing that. Well, I think that's an interesting point, which is that, for example, Titanic, very little happens in the first 2 hours. It's kind of an interesting film if you study it. Most movies are about 2 hours long. You get to the 2-hour mark in Titanic, the ship hasn't even hit the iceberg yet. You know, it's just people talking, it's a guy holding a girl's hand, he draws a picture, falling in love, it's a drama. And then it turns into an action and a suspense story. It's still very powerful emotionally, but so what's happening for that first 2 hours? It's just human interaction. It's just an intimate story of a relationship developing. Well, when I see the film in 3D now, I see how the 3D puts me right there with those characters. And I feel the emotions more strongly as a result of them. So I think that what people are going to find out is that 3D really enhances everything. Sure, it makes live sports better. Sure, it makes action movies and science fiction movies better and spectacular films. But it also really enhances intimate human drama and interaction, which is really, I think, the surprise. I think for me that's the big surprise of converting Titanic to 3D, is how much more you feel when you watch the film. The thing that's exciting to me about bringing Titanic back is not just the 3D. It's the fact that Titanic is coming back to movie theaters. And there's a whole generation of people. You talk about Hunger Games and Twilight. When you're talking about the teenage audience, right? A more female than male audience, which is a very significant audience globally. It's driving these major hit movies, right? Well, that was the same audience that was the core audience for Titanic. You know, I want to emphasize that Titanic played to a very big age spectrum, from 8 to 80 years old. People went to see Titanic that maybe hadn't been to a movie theater in 20 years. But the core audience was a young female audience, and it's the same audience that's driving Twilight and Hunger Games, right? So that's a generation now, 15 years later, that has never seen Titanic in a movie theater because they weren't even born when the film came out. So the question is, why should they go and see a movie that's 15 years old? And the answer is because Titanic stands outside of contemporary culture. It's a movie that was made about an event that took place a century ago. It was made in a very classic style. Like I studied the camera work, the way the film is shot is a very classic style, and I think it exists outside of time. And in a funny way, it's as fresh today as it was when it was released in 1997. I don't think we were intentionally trying to make a movie that would have that kind of longevity. I honestly couldn't think in those terms, but I think we actually achieved that. And the response that we're getting now when people see it is they feel like it's a movie that was made yesterday. And so, as such, I think it's going to be a new and fresh journey, certainly for people that have never seen the film or have only seen it on video. They're going to experience something beyond what they've seen before. If you know the film, and you did see it in a cinema in 1997, it's still going to be a new experience because of the 3D and because of the digital remaster. We spared no expense to make it look as perfect as it can. And I believe it looks better now than it did in 1997, which I think is significant. If you think about it, the 3D adds an extra dimension of enjoyment, and it creates more visual power, but we never change one frame of the movie. So we're not messing around with the film or revising it or creating a kind of strange shifting ground where people have to ask later, okay, which version of the film is the real Titanic? Because we didn't change a frame of the film. We remastered it digitally, we went to 4K, increased resolution, removed the grain, removed the noise from the image, improved the color, and so on. But these are all small, subtle improvements in a way to create like the kind of final reference version of the movie.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо. Спасибо огромное.